Welcome to Tech and Test, where we unravel the intricacies of technology, delve into the world of software engineering, and challenge the boundaries of software testing. Your host, Peter Johnson, will help you navigate the digital landscape, exploring the latest in tech, sharing insights into software development, and talking to the people that drive our digital world. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
And welcome to another episode of Tech and Test. I've said that very slowly. In my studio is Jesus.
Well, Jesus, you can say.
I can't say it. Is it Jesus?
Jesus, yeah.
Jesus.
Okay, that sounds all right. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's pretty good.
Thank you, because my Spanish isn't the best.
Yeah, well, my English isn't the best neither, so apologies in advance.
Welcome to the show. Do you know what Tech and Test is?
Yeah. I've seen some of the chapters you did before, especially Darren is your.
Oh yeah, Darren. Yeah, Darren. Yeah. It's been good. It's been good to have him on, and good to have you on. Right?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
no worries. And Deepseek. Right, I think it's Deepseek.
It's Deepseek, it is.
Okay, thank you. So Deepseek is this Chinese AI model, I think. And, basically I was in India, relaxing on the beach in Goa, and my phone was blinking with loads of feeds saying about how many millions and dollars or trillions of dollars, I don't know what it was. Basically, the stock market was going down, right? I think Nvidia stock dropped by so many, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening to the world? I literally go on holiday for 2 weeks, and things start deteriorating. And I was worried about my pension fund, basically. So I haven't yet used Deepseek, but it's obviously a Chinese model, right? So it's they've entered the world of AI and using that, which is pretty cool to see more contenders. But it got me thinking, if I start using this, am I going to get different results to OpenAPI? And it kind of opens up, how much bias do you think, is going to be in one model versus the other model? Maybe that's something we could do, where we can ask the same prompt on one model and then see if it gives the same.
That's true. Yeah, that would be an interesting experiment, but I'm pretty sure for some of the information you will find the same.
Right.
Especially related to technology, I could say that the answers will be very similar.
Yeah, there's only one internet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Even in China, you can say that there's a different one in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what concerns me, I guess, or it makes it more interesting. What data have they used to train this? And have they deliberately removed data from certain topics, which may be a good thing or maybe a bad thing, depending on your perspective?
Well, I mean, I think it depends I think all of them are biased in a way.
Yeah.
If you go to open ChatGPT, basically, that's the name we know it.
Yeah.
It's probably biased in a way also.
That's a good point. Just because we've become familiar with ChatGPT, doesn't mean to say there's less bias there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, of course, with China, there's always these political things that probably you ask Deepseek and it's going to answer the wrong thing or the not objective thing.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. And what is your view on using these large language models or AI in general? How much do you think? I don't know. I'm using a Copilot, right, to code.
Okay. Oh well, yeah. No shame on that. I think that's good. I use ChatGPT myself to sometimes help myself with coding and
I mean
this kind of questions that you go to Stack Overflow and end up reading all the comments and you don't find the answer for that.
It just short circuits that, right? Because you just get straight to a solution, and then you can. The key thing though, right? Because I think you still I've been interviewing some candidates in different roles. And I think you still need to know coding, basically, or programming.
Of course.
And it's easy to get a snippet of code and just copy and paste it and go, it's all working. So I still think we need to learn these things still. there is a debate on how much, I'm interested to know actually, if someone's studying computer science, how much do they use AI to help them get through the course?
Well, I could imagine if I were in university these days, it will be hard to avoid it. But it feels to me like another layer of abstraction. Like, for example, if you go back to in history and you told these people that used to code in a way with punch cards, basically.
Right.
When other languages came, they were born, they would say, gosh, they don't understand anything. They don't know the basics. Of course, they don't know the basics because it's another layer of abstraction that allows you to do more complex things in a way.
Yeah.
So I imagine that the way that ChatGPT and all these AI models will work is another layer of abstraction that allow us to do more complex things in the future. Because at the end, they are helping us with tiny things like tiny functions or algorithms that they exist already. You don't have to invent them. You don't have to know them in a way. It's like you don't have to use a calculator to do 1 + 1 because you know it. You know how to do 1 + 1, but it's faster to do 1 + 1 with a calculator. Well, I mean, 1 + 1 is a bad example, but you know how to do a basic operation.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think they're just a tool in the box like every other tool.
Exactly, yeah.
But I guess, I've read some studies where they show like critical thinking is down because people are using AI. And, if you're getting AI to do everything for you, like summarize all this data, write this email.
Yeah.
There reaches a point where I don't know, maybe your critical thinking does decrease because you become so reliant on using these tools, like the calculator, right?
Yeah.
Mental arithmetic for me has probably gone down because I use a calculator all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, I feel like that could be an issue in terms of maybe not in technology itself, but more for the general public, let's say.
Yes.
So, for example, these days everybody could say like our parents could use Google. Well, my parents don't know about technology much. They just use Google because it's the typical thing. So they go to Google and search for something.
Yeah.
You still have to research in that sense because you have to go through all the links that it gives you. Of course, Google is also biased. They will show you only the preferred options or however they list the Google links, but you still need to research a little bit. But ChatGPT will give you the answer that you're looking for in a way.
Yeah, it sort of short circuits, the searching a little bit, right?
Yes,
and I mean, maybe this is a really bad example, but I've used, I got curious about some of the medication a doctor gave me.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, let me check what ChatGPT thinks. And actually, ChatGPT gave me some responses that were like, yeah, this is a good medication to use. So I was like, great, awesome. But then I asked it to give me the sources, right?
Yeah.
And then this got a bit more interesting for me because I saw, not that I'm, medically trained, but I saw links or sources in like medical journals from like the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so this information that I'm seeing that it's told me that quick answer is actually based on information in the 90s in this paper. And that may all be fine. But then when I done a Google search for the same term, I found some other papers which also showed some side effects and some new discoveries they found since the original 90s paper, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, so ChatGPT or another AI system, I forgot which one I used, actually made a choice on using that particular source to kind of summarize the data. And that was a bit, I don't know, interesting. I wasn't fully aware of like, okay, the information I'm reading here was actually from the 90s.
Yeah, and that information is accurate with that paper, of course, but it doesn't show you the full picture sometimes. Yeah. And maybe if you interrogate ChatGPT or you start asking questions about its answer, you might get to some point, but I'm sure most of people won't do that.
Yes.
They will take as valid the first point because it's AI, it's intelligent, it's artificial intelligence, so it should know everything.
Yeah. And the responses it gives back are so like convincing, right? It sort of gives you, for this particular case, it gave me all of the side effects and all of the pros and cons, and I thought, brilliant.
Yeah,
it sounds really reliable because it was almost what was on the packet of the drug. So I thought, okay, so it's probably got the information from good sources, but there is a bias there on which papers it selected potentially to give me that information. And are those papers actually being funded by particular farmers or particular groups of, I don't know. But,
well, I mean, you can get a little bit conspiranoic in here, and pharmaceutics also have a big role on big companies. So
Well, it comes back to, it could just be different data sets they use and the intrinsic biases that, are in all these data sets. But it does kind of raise the question of, like, you almost feel like if you're going to use an AI agent or, LLM, it should give you the sources really straight up.
Yeah, I think it should be like the first thing it should mention, like, okay, the information is coming from this paper or from this study, from whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, just tell me.
I just want to click on the link and go, okay, I can trust this result, or, I can't. And I think not all of the chatbots I'm using are doing that. Maybe some of them are doing it better than others, but some of them just give you a quick answer, and it's like, okay, now I need to do research on if that answer is okay. And that's where, I'm finding the limitations of using this technology. It's like, the answer's good that I get back, but it's, can I trust the answer?
Exactly, yeah. That's the thing that worries me, especially with, as I said, general public, because the general use is going to be a problem in, like, all this fake news that you get on, I was about to say Twitter, in X. Sorry, it's still Twitter for everybody, I guess. Like, people take that as true in a way. Like, you see a tweet and everybody feels that, okay, that's true. It's not true. So ChatGPT might start getting some stuff into that.
Yeah, it could start bringing that data into its decision making.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe because it's biased, because there's some interest behind that. Because at the end, it's human control in a way, because it's human trained. So if you train the AI with the wrong information, then the AI is going to give you the wrong information. I mean, it's probably a little bit conspiranoic in a way.
A little bit, but
I mean, you can take the sample of Deepseek in a way, because it's an AI, so it's intelligent.
Yes.
So it's probably
as tick that box. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as good as ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure. But then you have all these questions that somebody's not interested on showing the truth about that. So talking about politics,
or world events or whatever.
Yeah. If you ask Deepseek about Tiananmen, it will tell you nothing happened.
Right.
And of course, that's not true, because something happened on Tiananmen. And that's one of the examples. Of course, that's the typical thing that everybody will ask Deepseek to, like, oh, yeah, I got you. You're not saying the truth, but I think the problem is not that Deepseek is not doing the right thing. I think the problem is that it shows that
the biases,
the bias that you can also add to other AIs.
That's a good point. Because, just because it's a model that's not developed in the US doesn't mean to say, that it's not biased.
Of course.
And I think DeepSeek's been a good example of really highlighting the biases in these LLMs, because people have given it attention on the biases. Where with OpenAI, it's almost accepted that, okay, we use it, but we haven't really questioned, or I don't think the media even itself has questioned the kind of biases, intrinsic biases in OpenAPI, as they have done with DeepSeek.
Exactly, yeah. I think, but I mean, of course, it's the competence, is the new guy in the and of course, it's Chinese, which doesn't help for the US in this case. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of political things taking place.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, we've talked a lot about using LLMs as like an end user, and I've talked about, how I've used it for like medication and, or not a good use case, but, that's an experiment. But, we could use it to, as an individual in society wanting to get some information, right?
Yeah.
And I think we can speak about those biases more. Or actually, what's interesting is, we both work in testing, right?
Yep.
And, we're all looking at how we can be more efficient in the workplace and how we can improve efficiency. And guess what? AI is here to help, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm using AI to obviously help me, like I mentioned, to help me generate code. And obviously that code that's generated needs me to create it and to modify it and to make sure it's tested. But it's also there to kind of give me the boilerplate. So if you've got loads of codes that is boilerplate and you just want it generated, to set up a project, you could get it to set up a project and you can modify. You need to still know what you're doing because you still need to modify all the config files. And there's a lot of hallucinations as well with AI, right? Where they, I've seen some examples where some config files have the wrong parameters in them because it's hallucinated in putting them there. So, it's really there just to kind of speed things up a little bit, but you still need to do the work of checking what's there. And I think that's true with any AI system.
Yeah, you need to, of course, I use AI also for checking my code when I don't have any idea how to progress on some new features or something like that. I'll always ask for a hand, basically.
Yeah, it's almost like, you've got another sort of junior developer with you that could help you.
Exactly.
Another pair of eyes, right? Looking at your code. Or
it's like a peer review or something like that, you could say.
Absolutely. And actually, something I've been thinking about is using AIs or AI agents. So this is like, we've got, let's say we train some models on something, then those models could potentially take some actions.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess it becomes interesting to know, like, how much of the testing could be done by these AI agents if they have enough training of the system or data, or they could even generate test cases dynamically.
I can imagine that could happen. The first thing I ever thought about using AI is to do something that nobody wants to do. That is unit testing.
Yes.
Who wants to do unit testing? Everybody complains about unit testing, but you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes your time. It's something very easy to do, but still, you need it in your code. ChatGPT or, say, any kind of AI model will help you out with that. You send a function, it will tell you exactly what kind of unit testing you could do with that. I think it's very helpful for that kind of cases, but of course, for the use of some end-to-end test cases or things like that, it feels like it needs more training.
Yeah.
So you probably will need a model internal to your project.
Right.
And not using a general...
foundational model or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, because probably it's not good enough to...
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know your project, of course. So you need to train the AI with the project you're working on, and probably eventually you will get a solution or to something that is useful for your use case.
Absolutely. And obviously there's different ways of adding this additional information to your model, right? Because these models are trained and they cost millions of dollars to train. Right?
Yeah.
But you can use things like RAG, right? Retrieval Augmented Generation, where you kind of throw your company's documents into a vector database.
Yeah.
And that can be used for, part of your prompt engineering to kind of put out results of the model that are more specific to your business. And I wonder, some of the challenges I've been facing is sometimes when we don't always want to write a test case that's scripted by a human because there's maybe intrinsic biases that human has.
Yeah.
We speak a lot about biases today.
Yeah.
But, the actual, author of that test case has some bias on how they think the product should be used. And obviously, we try to reduce that as much as possible, within testing, I suppose.
Yeah,
by taking on personas and understanding the user, and but fundamentally, there will still be some bias, right? If you've used the product so many times, you will continue to use the product in a very similar way because okay, I click this button and the product launches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You don't click loads of other buttons then launch the product, maybe.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you will need to test that because not everybody uses a product in the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah, you will expect that someone will press a accept button, but maybe some other will just drag the button.
Exactly.
And if you don't test that test case,
you could crash the app.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can crash or can do something very strange, and yeah, you need to test that. And AI models can help with that,
Right.
because they can think out of the box. Because humans, I mean, of course we can think, and we have to, as testers, think out of the box.
Yes.
But it's very hard sometimes to
remove
think,
your biases, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. Because you could say, why someone could do that? Why?
Yeah.
Why could you drag the button?
But so it's not even intentionally, right? Sometimes you are, you're writing an automated test and you're using some setup functions that are already existing. And maybe those setup functions are, someone's decided that the product launches in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't click 500 buttons first and then launch the product. So that maybe there's, something to be said for an AI agent that actually generates the code for the test.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I could say even that, not even the code, but probably generate the manual test cases, probably, like the different use cases that some of them you wouldn't think about.
Yeah.
But the AI model will tell you, okay, did you think about this test case that you are not having in mind in here? And I think it may help you out to have more robust testing, more...
Yes, to kind of, help you with the test planning. And, these scenarios could still happen. And, we're trying to remove biases which are in the model.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But I guess there are a different set of biases because the AI model or the AI agent will not have the same understanding of of how you've used the product, right? So it should be a bit more of a fresh understanding, unless you're training it with, or, adding data to it through RAG, for example, of your use cases. So if you take your logs.
Yeah, exactly. If you send the logs of all the users, maybe it starts to imitate what the users do. Yeah, you don't want that.
But maybe that's a good thing,
Yeah.
If they are your users, then that's what the users are doing. But then there'll be one user that doesn't do that, and then...
Yeah, I mean, at the end, is what any tester will do these days anyway, because when you have an issue,
Yes, you need to reproduce the issue, right?
You need to reproduce the issue, so you create a test case for that doesn't happen anymore. So,
yeah.
But you want to be actively solving that before the issue goes live.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So that's why it's important to have the AI models working with you to do that.
Yeah, it sounds good. And I guess, you work in gaming, I imagine.
Yeah, work in gaming. Yeah.
Awesome. Does that mean you how much of your day is spent, I want to say this in the nicest possible way, but how much of your day do you spend playing games?
Well, I mean, for work, not that much. For hobby, much more than for working.
Okay.
Of course,
it's working.
Of course, for working, I work in the framework that automates the testing of the game. So at the end of the day, I don't touch the game. So, yeah. It plays itself in a way. So I know how to see how the game plays itself.
Brilliant. Okay, so you are kind of making code to make the game play itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and I find it fascinating because I'm not a big gamer, despite I have multiple games consoles, right?
Yeah, can see that.
But I find it, for me, I find gaming is a way of relaxing maybe, or getting some dopamine hit of playing a game and trying to score. But I guess doing that at work as well and doing that at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, I imagine that it's hard it would be hard for you to be the whole day with a game, like even playing or even working with it. It's...
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody in the industry, I would say everybody probably is too much to say, but a high percentage of people working on gaming is passionate about gaming.
Yes.
And I can feel that in the company I'm working. Everybody is passionate about not only gaming, also about the game that we work on.
Good point. Yeah. I guess this is the thing, right? Because I'm not such a big gamer, to me, it's almost like gaming's a way of relaxing. And I forget there's teams of people that build all these games and really have to make it engaging enough And the challenge I find, I guess, I don't know much about this, but like, if you imagine all the different input, the different ways, I have a 5-year-old son, and when he plays a game, it's very different to how I play a game. And he'll just click loads of buttons and, do things that I think should not be expected.
Of course, yeah. I think that's a part that is very fun to work with games in testing, because in a way, I would say testing in general is very methodic.
Yeah.
So you pretty much have to do always the same. You always follow the same rules, and more or less you build your framework, your test cases, and the scenarios and everything. But for gaming, it's a bit more creative in a way. And gaming is creative, of course. If you work in the art, if you work in art or the gameplay of the game, that's creative.
Yeah, the storyline.
Yeah, of course, that's creative for sure. But even for testing, you have to be creative, because
everyone's creative.
Yeah, everyone is a little bit creative, because what you're working on is not something common. Most of the software products you see in your daily life are shops, maybe something like web pages where you see information like Wikipedia kind of things.
The creativity is less, right? It's very more functional. It's like, I want to order something and it will be delivered at my door.
Yeah.
Like Amazon's like shopping website experience, for example. But other stores are available too, but
Yeah, that's just an example. Most of the shops have a similar layout.
Yeah.
All of them have their style, but at the end of the day, it's just a
shopping
checkout.
cart, right?
And
and I guess other applications, right? There's a lot more functionality to it. Like there's just a set of inputs, a set of outputs.
Exactly. Yeah. it's more classic, let's say. It's more.
Yeah, it's well understood in terms of like. But I guess nowadays, I guess Amazon still uses a lot of, and other companies too, still use a lot of AI based in, to recommend and to track you and to make sure the products you're buying, you buy more of those.
And you will see it recommends for previews, things you
recommends for things you'll buy in 3 months, and they tell you about that 3 months before you buy it.
For example, or you were talking about something and suddenly by magic it appears in your phone.
That's happened a few times to people I know. And there are settings in your phone and in your browser that you can sort of turn on or to stop audio being listened to.
I mean, I'm not sure how that works. I imagine that it's more about the things you put in your keyboard, for example, that the things you search for, and at the end of the day, even if you don't search for that, at the end.
Oh, I definitely have been in rooms where somebody has mentioned product X, right?
Yeah.
And then literally within 30 minutes, they've started to receive adverts about product X. And nobody's searched that. It's just come up on the feed.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of speculation here. I don't know the full experiment on what they did, but it's happened a few times where we've been talking about a particular product, and there's probably some listening devices around, and whether that's built into the phone or whether that's some other assistant that's nearby that's listened, and I don't know. But I do know, in some browsers, there are settings that you can go into in the privacy settings, and you can actually say, do not include audio recordings as part of my search queries. So, I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I imagine that even recording without your consent should be illegal, but of course...
It is. You may have consented to it, right?
That's most probably what happened with 100% of the population or 99% of it.
Yeah. I think I haven't explored it enough, but I think when you start using certain products, you do sign up to all these terms and conditions, and maybe we need to be looking more closely into all of the small print to what's in there if you use said browser or said technology.
Yeah, that's dangerous, because at the end of whatever you're searching for, that can be used against you in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's someone, At the moment, they're recommending adverts to me, but how else could that data be used? And that's quite scary, right?
I mean, of course, most of the recommendations will be in my case, would be buy the latest game or buy the new PlayStation or something like that. But
well, now they know you very well now. You're a gamer.
They don't need an AI to know me, to be fair.
We can save them the money.
Yeah, that's true.
Brilliant. Okay. So I guess AI is used more and more in our workflows.
Yeah.
And as we kind of enter this world where there's more and more agents, more and more LLMs, I see a world where everyone, who's going to be office-based, doing some kind of office work with a computer, will be using LLMs or AI in some way, even if they don't know they're using it. Or some other AI agent, whether it's, something that summarizes results or, prepares reports for you, or, I can just see this being used everywhere. And it really is happening now, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, for the things you mentioned right now, for example, to create reports is very good.
Yeah.
Because that's not biased at all. I've been doing experiments, getting the test results from our framework, and that works pretty well. So you just send a bunch of JSON files, some explanation about what you're testing, a little bit like, okay, create me a report with this JSON file that is based on, for example, in my case, it's just a cucumber test that outputs, a bunch of tests about this specific product I'm working on. And it creates a very good report, even with graphs, with the test results, with success, failures, a skip test. And I think that's very good because that's something that you spend a lot of time sometimes to build in your system.
Yeah.
And having AI model to build this for you, it's interesting because you don't have to put the focus on that because you have that information already.
Yeah.
The only thing is that, of course, a JSON is not the most comfortable thing to read.
Yeah. There'll be people in the business who want it in a much more presentable way, right? And JSON's good for your engineers, but if you give it to, someone very senior in management, they just want the top level numbers of, whatever the data
That's what usually happens at least in our case, that we do the test, we know what is going on, but higher ups want to have numbers.
Yeah, the top level, right?
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense. And you're right. We have a lot of, when we start testing, we have a lot of data, right? Yeah. And some of the challenges I think AI can help with is trawling through. If we're executing loads of tests every day, we're generating loads of logs, loads of artifacts, loads of data. We don't have a lot of time to go through all these logs and datas, and potentially there's missed bugs within those logs and missed, performance issues and, all sorts of things we could be checking that just are in the data set, but are not being, exposed. And I guess, if we start training models on, taking all this data and find the most, find timing issues or performance issues or issues that, we may have missed within our sort of scripted test cases, maybe. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of potential there for AI with training up these models and maybe getting it to sort of do a double check.
Double. I mean, we can use them already for this kind of tasks that they don't need training. They just need information. You generate the information. They are clever enough to explain it for you.
Yes, just summarize. Yeah. Look at all these logs and, summarize the data you find here based on these parameters, right? It could be things that, there's certain events that are taking a lot of time and we want to find how many of those exist in a data set, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It can give you a trend. It can give you percentage of failure or I don't know, whatever you ask for it. Yeah, you have APIs to use it also, so you can embed that in your code easily and get the results straight to your to your PC, good. to your system.
Yeah, as soon as anything that runs, it could be building up into some database, and then we have the model summarizing as much as we want on that data set.
Yeah.
And I think this is really where AI helps us be more efficient.
Exactly, yeah. And that's how I see everything. That's going to be the future of it in a way. basically that this is going to be just a tool for us, because I see lots of people complaining or getting scared about it, that
there's a lot
AI
of
will
fear.
replace jobs or will replace people. I mean, I'm maybe a little bit naive on that sense, or positive, but
Right.
I feel it more like it's a tool, another tool, rather than something that will substitute us, at least in the short term. In 100 years, I don't know. We won't be here, to be fair.
True. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's another tool in the box, right?
Exactly.
And I think maybe, I think that the original hype of AI, and I think has died down a little bit. It's become more commoditized, I think, in terms of how people see it. But there is this still fear that I think some people have of, I mean, I challenge those people who have that fear on, if you were to ask AI to kind of create an application for you, how much of that could it do autonomously?
Yeah.
That just works out of the box, right? As per the hallucinations, you may end up with, errors all over your application, which requires someone to debug it. And is the AI good enough to debug the issues and the hallucinations it put in?
Yeah. And I think in a way, the applications are a bit subjective, because they are made to be used by humans, and humans use applications in a weird way. So,
yeah.
So what an AI might think is a very cool thing, it might not be. It might be not attractive, for example. You can see that app and you can look at that and say, gosh, that's ugly.
Yes, the sort of...
it's not intuitive, for example. And maybe the AI thinks it's intuitive, but it isn't, because some of the stuff... I mean, there's people working in UX that
absolutely
spend lots of time to think about where to put a button.
Yes.
So...
and, not to mention things like accessibility and other legal requirements, and just making sure the product you build works for everyone.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I can imagine, for example, gaming. Imagine that.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure an AI can build a game.
Yeah.
Will it be fun?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, probably not. Or
no.
Or yes, I don't know. But that's the thing. You never know what's going to come out of that, so you cannot trust everything that comes out of it.
Yes, and it may be fun for some people, but then if you're particularly targeting a certain group, then the AI may not be fully it may have its own biases on that, which you may not know until you start playing the game, and you
exactly. And the thing is that you want to sell the game. I imagine that most of the companies want to make some profit for the product they do.
Sure, makes sense.
So
that's the bottom line for a lot of businesses, right? We all need to have profitability is important when you're running a business, so that's key. And putting all of your eggs in one basket is a bit risky, right? So
it is.
I think today the AI models and agents we use are really helpful with improving efficiency, and that's kind of how I see them. Is there's some efficiency gains here, but there's no kind of replacement as of yet.
Yeah, that's what I agree with that.
Cool. Actually, can you hear that? I think it's the cat snoring.
Yeah.
So we have Matilda in. I think she's been mentioned on the podcast maybe once or twice. But there's a cat in the room with us, Matilda, and she's snoring. So
she's telling. I think we've been a little bit boring for her. So
yeah, we probably have, to be fair. But I guess it's time to go. She's put me in the mood of falling asleep.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
She looks so peaceful that I think it's telling us time to go.
Time to go. Brilliant. Okay. So thank you for talking about Deepseek when we haven't installed Deepseek.
Yeah, hopefully next time we can talk about it with more knowledge.
Yeah.
Instead of babbling about it without...
Yeah. I mean, I literally read about it just before I got on the plane for 10 hours, and I was like, okay. And then, we started recording this episode. So.
Yeah, well, 10 hours of thinking about it. So that's a lot of time to...
Well, some of those hours were sleeping or trying to sleep.
Yeah. You're wearing a deep sleep.
Deep sleep. I don't know. I'd have to. Well, I was in a deep sleep trying to seek, some foundational things in my life.
That's so poetic.
It is. It is. Maybe I'll ask Deepseek to write me a poem about how I haven't installed it yet.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe I could just go off and do some other things.
Yeah, true. I like investigating about Deepseek. So next time, I think we will hear about that in the future, I'm sure.
I'll give you an update when I've actually ran some experiments with Deepseek. How about that?
I'll do the same, definitely.
Okay. We can have a Deepseek competition.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is going quite deep, so we should probably stop.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on Tech and Test. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. It's been great.
Awesome.
I love it.
Thanks. Hello, it's Peter. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tech and Test. I personally appreciate it, and I hope you got something out of it too. If you're interested in subscribing, please do, because then you don't miss any episode I've created. And you can also visit techandtest.co.uk, which has all the episodes that I've created. And you can visit peterintest.com for my personal blog too. So I'll see you on the next episode.